Hey, I'm Scott Allen Miller, and today I'm doing another special episode because subscriber, New World Money, and I'm going to paraphrase as how can I get started in video editing because I want to do videos for my family videos and stuff. Like, I want to be able to edit them. And that's a great question because if you're not doing like a lot of YouTube stuff or have not done this a lot before, it's sometimes daunting to try to figure out where to get started. And even though I did videos and a lot of editing, like to the point where I was almost offered a job 30 plus years ago. Oh my gosh, for real. I took a long time off and I really only got back into it because I was having kids. My father did a bit of video editing and he was like, oh yeah, check out this software, try this things out. And he kind of gave me a quick start to get back into it. And even so, there's a lot of questions around it. Like, what software do you use? How do people do some of the things that they do? And it can be quite a bit. So here's some quick advice. One, I do have a separate camera channel that's very new and just getting started. And I haven't discussed any of this stuff on there yet, but I will be soon. So go subscribe to that as well. That is the Camera Cafe. Just go to my page on YouTube, Scott Allen Miller Vlog. Scroll down a little bit. A bunch of my channels are down there. Camera Cafe is one of them. There's only 2 episodes up now. I've got a 3rd about to go up. I've got a 4th I'm ready to make. And pretty soon I'm going to start talking about exactly this stuff. So good place to go hang out. It's a little bit different vibe than here, but filmed in the same place. So if you like cameras and video editing, go there. But for just everybody who's interested in doing just a little bit of video editing, let's talk about that. First things first, money is a big factor. Are you trying to do this on the cheap? And that's great. That's what I did for a really long time. Then we need to look at one set of tools. Are you looking to, I don't really care. Money's no object. I've got a great job, plenty of money, and I'm willing to throw money at this. Then let's talk about a separate set of tools. And something that's probably going to be a big factor in that is what kind of camera are you using? Are you just using your cellular phone? Are you using a GoPro and that's what you're going to be using for everything? Or are you looking to go out and invest in something amazing like a Fujifilm X-T4 or the new XH2S or whatever? Are you getting an Olympus EM1 or OM1? Like, you getting these amazing cameras, then you're going to want to have some tools that can really work with that stuff, and you're making a big investment all across the board. But if you're just working with a cell phone, maybe you want to do something that's a lot more cost effective. So just think about those things and consider what you get into today. Is this something you're going to dabble in and then do a lot more with? Or do you just want to do some basic family video editing and you don't want to be spending too much money ever? Consider those things. That said, the other thing that really matters when you're making these decisions is what platform are you going to work on? And I mentioned this in some of the write-ups. Windows, Linux, and Mac. Those are the 3 big platforms. And some people will even do all their editing on, say, an iPad. That's plausible. If so, you're very limited, and I don't do that, so I can't answer very much about that. I don't know what tools are really available. It's probably going to be pretty annoying. The big dog, or traditionally the big dog in any platform, is Adobe Premiere. This is super expensive, and it's really designed around professionals. Not that it's hard to get into, and there are lots of resources for it, but honestly, I've noticed that the amount of people that talk about Adobe Premiere has dramatically dropped, at least in my sphere, over the last year. A year ago, almost every single YouTuber that I watched, every influencer was just assuming you were using Premiere, and it was the only thing that people, you didn't even have to ask what people used. It's what people used. And if you found someone with Final Cut, they would be the outlier. And those 2 were everything. Today, I'm finding that nobody is mentioning Premiere, and everyone's talking about Final Cut and DaVinci Resolve. So we're going to get to those in a second. But Premiere, very, very expensive and only available by subscription, and it's something in the range of $30 to $60 per month. And so you're stuck with that. And if it's something you're going to do all the time and you're a professional, that's not a problem at all. But if it's something you're just dabbling in or you're doing but it's not your job, like me, because I do a lot of video editing, like every day, in case you hadn't noticed, I do probably 3 videos per day, 7 days a week, and I don't use Adobe Premiere. And I could, but I don't want to, right? So consider really carefully whether that's something you want to invest in, because you're going to get trapped with that cost. Add that up times 12, and then think about that you can't drop it without having to start over, learning a new tool and anything. So if you're doing something in any way casually, it probably doesn't make sense. Now, each platform that you're going to use is going to define what your options are beyond that. And I should say, with Adobe Premiere, that's available on Windows and on Mac. That is it. That's another reason why I don't use it. I don't use Windows. For me personally, some of you know this, my main computer is an M1 Mac. That is the new Mac with Apple hardware. If you're going to get a Mac, trust me, don't even consider an Intel Mac. I come from an IT background, Intel Macs are kind of garbage, and the Apple Macs, one of the M1, M2 chips, are amazing. The difference is they're worlds apart. So if you're going to get into the Mac world, which I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but if you're going to look at the Mac world, the ARM M1 hardware or M2 hardware, depending on what generation, is truly amazing, makes all the difference. And if you're an expatter like me and a lot of the people on here, one of the reasons you want to consider the M1 or M2 chips is they use dramatically less power than their Intel or AMD counterparts. Intel in the Apple world or Intel and AMD across the board for other things. That's one of the reasons to move to it in a place like this where there's a lower power infrastructure, or if you're moving around and have an unknown infrastructure, you can help the places that you're moving to by consuming less power by having a more efficient processor. Apple used to be very bad for this and is now the best. So that's a great reason to consider that. It also generates less heat. We air condition here, so all those things play in together. I'm right next to my office window. That's why my computer is right there. And because it's an M1 Mac Mini, it generates extremely little heat, makes no noise. I cannot hear it at all, which makes it perfect for a studio. Because it doesn't generate very much heat, I don't have to air condition as much or as often. A lot of times I go to fresh air. Today was an extremely hot and humid day, and I still just turned on a fan and was fine for almost the entire day until just the last few minutes, about 30 minutes ago. I decided I needed some air conditioning for the evening. That's it. That computer is using less power and generating less heat into the air, making me use less electricity for the HVAC system. It all just cycles back to making things more efficient. So I like that a lot. But when I'm doing things on my laptop or my other computers, I use Ubuntu Linux, which is currently on 22.04, and that has a lot of built-in editing software options that are very, very good as well. And some of them are available on Mac, and almost all of them are also available on Windows. So making your choices there on your hardware will determine what software you want to use. If you're really looking to do this as a professional, then you're probably going to want to choose your software and choose your hardware based on the software you want to use. But as long as you're doing so casually in any way whatsoever, start with the hardware you have and then look at your software options. And every one of those platforms has a huge number of options. I would actually say that it is Windows who has the fewest, and it still has more than anyone can reasonably have to look at. Okay, so what are the products that are worth looking at? I mentioned Adobe Premiere, and basically I would say rule that out. It simply doesn't make sense. Sorry, I got distracted. A giant lizard just ran up the wall. And there's very little reason, unless you're looking at going professional, that you should consider Premiere at all. And even if going professional, I would encourage you to think very carefully whether investing in Premiere would make sense for you. Probably it does not, unless you've already learned it. That's their bread and butter, is they pay or provide free resources to students and graphics arts schools and in film schools so that they become very, very versed in that software. And when they come out to be able to get jobs and work very quickly, they're stuck. And once they're trapped in that cycle, it's very hard to break free. Microsoft does the same thing. Cisco does the same thing. It is a common tactic for software companies to do that. They get lots of users who have learned by rote how to use their products, don't know how to adapt, or just don't have the time or resources to adapt to lower cost products, and end up earning less throughout their lifetime. So if you don't already fall into that trap, try to avoid it. If you're on Windows, your main options are going to be DaVinci Resolve, OpenShot, ShotCut, and KDENLive. Those four are all very professional, all available on Windows, and all will take advantage of your hardware, whether it's hardware GPUs, whether it's NVIDIA or AMD. So you have very, very flexible options on that platform. DaVinci Resolve, and this is true for all platforms, comes free. And if you want to get all of the features, you have to pay, it's about $295, and that unlocks the full studio version of it. Most people who are going to use it any amount are going to want to pay that money. But you can get into it, learn it, and get started, and potentially never have to move up to the more expensive version. But if you do have to move up, it's a one-time fee, or only every so often. It's not a monthly subscription, so that cost is not too bad. And DaVinci Resolve, like Final Cut and Premiere, has a giant ecosystem of people making extra products for it, which we will talk about later. Those three are unique in that they have large external third-party ecosystems. That's pretty darn valuable, which we'll find out. The other products available on Windows that I mentioned are all completely free. Those are part of the open source family of video editing tools, and they tend to be really, really good but lack the third-party ecosystems. Not that they have none, but their third-party systems are very small and probably do not have the things that you're looking for. But if you're simply doing home videos, they may be perfectly adequate. You may just need to get one or two extra third-party tools that do everything you need, and you may be fine with it. And I worked with those for a very long time before moving to Final Cut Pro myself. So certainly you can make it work. If you move to Linux, you lose Adobe Premiere, but you keep all of the other ones that I mentioned, all the ones that I think are valuable on Windows, DaVinci Resolve, OpenShot, ShotCut, and KDENLive, and you also add FlowBlade, which is arguably, possibly my favorite on Linux. Unfortunately, FlowBlade has taken a hiatus, their development team, and nothing has been made in the last year to year and a half. They say they're coming back. I'm really hopeful. But when I'm working on Linux, I like FlowBlade the most, but because of their lack of current development and because they are Linux only, I tend to use ShotCut, which I find to be very, very close. And I learned first. ShotCut is available on every platform, including the Mac M1 native, and that is a really big deal. So if you're looking for something you can use anytime, anywhere, ShotCut is probably your best choice. DaVinci Resolve also works on everything. Those are kind of unique in how broadly available they are. I believe OpenShot may now be available on all three platforms, but don't quote me. You'll have to double check that. So on Linux, you have a really good selection, but if you want to have that third-party ecosystem, DaVinci Resolve is going to be your only option. If we move to Mac, then we shift that around a bit. We get Adobe Premiere back. We still have DaVinci Resolve and ShotCut, which are everywhere. I believe OpenShot is still available. I do not believe KDENLive is currently available on modern Mac, at least not without the emulator, which I find to be a terrible idea, and FlowBlade definitely is not available. So you have lots of options on every platform. You just need to play around with the ones that make sense for you. Now, if you're just getting started, there's a temptation to try everything, and of course that's great. If you have the time and the inclination to do that, download a bunch of products and play with them. Final Cut Pro has like a 30 or a 90-day trial that you can do for free. If you're on Mac, go do that. DaVinci Resolve, you have that free version that you can use indefinitely. Go do that. Play with OpenShot, play with ShotCut, see what rings with you, what makes you comfortable, what's fun to use, what allows you to edit quickly. All of those are really good choices. All of them can do very professional editing and make some really great results. So you're not going to be overly limited by any of them. For me personally, I got started with OpenShot, and I did that because I feel like it's geared more towards beginners. It has fewer advanced options, but can do a reasonable amount of basics really easily. And that's nice, because if you don't really have a lot of advanced things you're trying to do, but you aren't sure how to do the basics, it walks you through a lot of that kind of naturally through its workflow. And I found it very simple to get up and running in just a few days. And so I like that a lot, but I also have to say that OpenShot feels a lot different than all of the others. And I feel that once you've moved beyond OpenShot, then I find that working with FlowBlade, ShotCut, and Final Cut Pro allows me to actually move between them much more easily for some reason. I simply find their interfaces and their workflows to be more related to each other. And so I tend not to use OpenShot anymore, but it is a great product. And for a lot of people, that is going to be the only thing you ever need to use. So especially if you're doing family videos, OpenShot may be that perfect tool that gives you enough power, but not too much, that you're happy to always keep editing. And OpenShot is completely free. It is open source. It is available on, I believe, every platform, but at least Windows and Linux, and works with hardware acceleration and has current development. It's a really great product. And if you're getting Ubuntu Linux as your operating system, most of these, not DaVinci, but FlowBlade, ShotCut, OpenShot, and KDENLive are all built into the operating system. You simply have to choose them as part of your installation group, and they are completely included and maintained and tested, and everything is part of your operating system. When you update your operating system, they update with it. So it's all very, very nice. No one else has that. With Mac, you can get some of the products from the Mac store, like Final Cut Pro, but it's not quite the same, and it's certainly an additional cost. Now, when you're looking beyond that, if you're looking to move up or you want something that's in a more advanced ecosystem today, most likely ShotCut is going to be my recommendation in the completely free, always free family. I really am happy with Final Cut Pro for the most part. It is a little bit unstable. It does crash. Like many Mac products, it's not as polished as its open source counterparts from a speed and stability standpoint, but from a usability and ecosystem standpoint, it is second to none. So you have trade-offs. I definitely have my Mac hang a couple times a day, completely crash out the application once or twice a day, and you have to get used to working with a number of things that are pretty finicky. And sometimes I'm even not able to output videos with Final Cut, and I have to take all the work that I've done, move it to ShotCut and re-render in ShotCut, or have ShotCut do some of the rendering and then move it back into Final Cut, because ShotCut is so much more robust and able to handle files that Final Cut is supposed to work with, but crashes when using or simply fails to render, which can be very frustrating. So I find Final Cut requires a little bit more, like many Apple products, the opposite of what they advertise, but the reality is, and I work in IT, this is a consistent reality, Apple products require a bit more expertise, a bit more finesse. You're going to spend more time learning Mac and Final Cut and all of their particular workflows and how they handle files and all those things to be able to work fluidly and efficiently. Once you do, they'll be great, and they're wonderful tools, and I'm choosing them and spending money on them. So in no way am I saying they're a bad product, but they're not perfect. ShotCut, as a great example, is faster and more stable than Final Cut and can do a lot of things that Final Cut just fails on. So for me, I use multiple to overcome some challenges. Final Cut is able to do all kinds of really cool. If you watch my videos, I've got animated things going on all the time. Most of those I get from Motion VFX, and those are things I pay for. It's a third party, but I'm able to get those because I have Final Cut and or DaVinci Resolve. But if I had Premiere, I couldn't use those. If I was using ShotCut, I'm not able to use those. And so if I do need to do something in ShotCut, I will render just that bit in Final Cut and then move it into ShotCut and do the final render from ShotCut, which is not a great workflow. I don't like having to do that, but sometimes Final Cut doesn't give me too much of a choice. I find, especially if you watch my video gaming channel, that's where it tends to choke the most, because I believe it has a hard time with the Microsoft Windows video creation toolkit for video games. Sometimes has to drop frames in order to keep up with the frame rate of the games at the very high resolution that we record at. That seems to be when Final Cut chokes on it, but I can't figure out why, and certainly it should not, right? ShotCut has no problem with that whatsoever. I don't know anything else that has a problem with it, so I wish the Final Cut was a little bit more robust for sure, but it is a really great tool. So if that brings up all those things like the Motion VFX. I only get that ecosystem of being able to go out and get FX Factory, Motion VFX, tons and tons of things you can download. Some are free, many you pay for. All of those are basically only available when you have Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve. Final Cut has more than DaVinci, but they both have so many that it's not really a problem at all. Those same kind of things could exist in OpenShot, ShotCut, FlowBlade, and KDENLive. They really don't. I've never found anyone providing those tools for those. If anyone has links to someone who's making cool titles and different motion graphics and stuff for those platforms, please provide me some links so we can check them out. I will link them below. That would be great. I'll talk about them on Camera Cafe. Absolutely. That would be great. I wish I knew where those were. I wish I could go to Motion VFX and get all that stuff for ShotCut, because I might use ShotCut if I had those things. That was the thing that pushed me over. For me, it was having all those animated titles, all that third-party artistic work that I was able to go out and just pay not too much for. In many cases, I would get bundles and wait for sales and go to Motion VFX and get, say, the YouTuber 2-pack or the whatever it's called, MTuber 2 pack for like $50 and have all kinds of subscribe buttons and titles and lower thirds and all those things. Those things make working in these tools a lot easier. And Final Cut Pro came with a whole bunch of those included, a lot. If you watch my videos, that bar that comes across the bottom with the title and the date, that's actually built in. That's not a third-party tool that I'm adding. You don't get very much of that, if any, from the open source tools. I'm not sure why they haven't focused on it, because I think it's a spot where they're really lagging and it would make the uptake of their products explode. But that's where the gaps are for sure. So that's something I would heavily recommend considering how much that's going to affect you, because if you need that, that's going to determine what your options are as far as your platform, or if you're going to need to mix and match to get that, or if you're going to have a third-party person actually create that for you and then add it in yourself. Like, there's ways to get around it, but it's a problem. Overall, I think if you were on Windows and it was me, and you plan on using that third-party ecosystem, I would go with DaVinci Resolve. If you are looking for something that will allow you to have a workflow that you could easily move into Final Cut or DaVinci or something else, I would work with ShotCut. And if you were really looking for something to get started with and was not looking to move into anything more advanced, and if you watch my Take Flight with Scott channel and watch the first 6 videos of that series of the Grand Tour 2, where we're in Greece, all of the stuff I did in that is OpenShot across the board. All those titles, all those fade in, fade outs, the transitions, they're all very basic. That's all OpenShot. So if that meets your requirements, OpenShot is going to be probably the best tool for you. Watch my videos here. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Better be. Watch these videos and see like the animated things and everything that are going on here. These are Final Cut Pro, and I am buying these tools. So Final Cut or DaVinci are how you're going to get these tools. And go check out Motion VFX. I really need to get an affiliate link for them, I think, now. That would be smart. And that's how you're going to get those pieces. And trust me, those things do make your life a lot easier. If you have DaVinci for free and you spend $50 on MTuber 3 maybe, or you'll spend more, probably $90 on MTuber 3 from Motion VFX, you're going to have enough things that you're going to feel you can put in cool titles and neat effects and modify them and learn how to use them. And it's going to get you really far in feeling like you have a professional product that looks like other things that are on YouTube. If you look at my videos with Take Flight, yes, they look fine. I don't think you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't make things that look good. But you're going to be like, how are these other people making these cool motion things everywhere? I don't have those tools. That is correct. OpenShot does not have those tools built in, but it does handle SVG graphics really easily, and you can move things around the screen. You can make it do a bit, but you're not going to be able to just reach out, find a website full of third-party tools that already do what you want and plug them in. So it kind of comes down to how much work you want to do yourself. If you're going to be on Linux, you have more options. I would mostly have the same discussion. If you are looking for that third-party ecosystem, DaVinci Resolve again. If you want the option of moving up, just like on Windows, ShotCut, just the same. And if you're never going to move away from those things, if you just want something simple and you're always just going to do the family stuff and you want to keep it free, OpenShot. Coming over to Mac, we have a little bit different. If you're willing to spend a little bit of money, I think Final Cut is going to have the biggest ecosystem, the most tools, and probably have the lowest barrier to entry of the more advanced tools. DaVinci is known for being a little bit finicky to learn. ShotCut is no easier than Final Cut, and I think if you learn Final Cut first, its magnetic timeline is a big enough bonus feature that it's awkward to use if you didn't learn it first, but if it's how you learn how to do editing, it's going to make your life a little bit easier. So if you can start on that with a magnetic timeline and not have to learn it later, that is a big boost to your productivity. And so for $300, and it's completely integrated into the Apple ecosystem, and there's lots of third-party tools for it, $300 is very little to pay for that kind of software. But again, if you don't have that budget, or it doesn't feel appropriate to spend $300 on your hobby, then again, DaVinci Resolve will get you most of the way there, and that third-party ecosystem when you need it. You still have ShotCut. It is still native for the Apple M hardware silicon, and it's going to run great. I use it on Mac M1, and it runs beautifully, just like it does on my AMD Ryzen hardware. Both are great, and that's going to give you that experience of that similar workflow to DaVinci and Final Cut without having anything to spend money on. And I believe OpenShot is available there. So the same thing again, if you're going to do family stuff and nothing else for sure, that's probably the way to go. You'll notice that FlowBlade and KDENLive essentially never made the list. They're both great tools. I like them a lot. I haven't used KDENLive more than just a few minutes. FlowBlade I like a lot. And if they get their act together and really get the development going again, I could see them surpassing ShotCut potentially in how easy they are to use and how nice they are to use if ShotCut doesn't keep advancing and if FlowBlade starts to catch up quickly. But until that happens, I think they kind of fall into the background for the moment. Those are the short list items I would look at. Pretty much avoid Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci, ShotCut, and OpenShot. Those are the 4 to really consider, and you have my reasons why. Now, once you've chosen your tool, any one of these tools, you can go on YouTube, and there are lots of YouTubers, not me, who teach these individual tools and really go into detail. Once you've chosen one, if anybody's looking, I can help look for a channel that will teach some of those skills. OpenShot, I know, makes their own set of videos. Final Cut, I liked watching the Final Cut Bro. I think he's pretty good at teaching a lot of those things. But there's a lot of people who teach those skills, and of course you can just search for different things on YouTube. But mostly it's sitting down and simply going through the tool and saying, I just want to do a couple simple things with a video. I want to, trim it. I want to merge two things together. I want to blend. I want to do transition. I want to put a title on it, and then looking up how to do that specific task. And then pretty quickly you're going to learn some workflows and be like, okay, I can do this. I can do that. And the most challenging thing that's hard to redo is how do you do final renders to upload for YouTube or for whatever platform you're going to go to. That's where you kind of have to get it right the first time, because once you upload, you can't re-upload. But that's really not too bad, and all those things can be looked up. For the most part, it's going to be trial and error. There are lots of video series out there on YouTube teaching just general editing and those specific tools, so it's not something that's going to be really short to find. But really, you got to get playing with it. You have to choose the tool and get playing with it before you start looking for those things. And then once you find them, they should be pretty easy to get moving with. Thanks for joining me. I know there's going to be questions on this. Ask them below, and I will see all of you tomorrow.